Don't forget to like and subscribe to Jolie Knots Crochet. Share with your friends. Hit that little notification bell so you can get notified when new patterns release. All our videos are available in left and right-handed tutorials. Hi everyone, welcome back to Jolie Knots Crochet. I'm Crystal and today we are going to be making this Flounder Fan Kids cardigan. Now there will be an adult size coming out next week for this same cardigan, so if you're looking for the adult size, no worries, it is coming. This cardigan is sized from 3T all the way up to 14 youth. Now the way that this cardigan is worked is we are going to start on one end of the front panel. These are working in vertical rows, so we're going to work it sideways. We're going to be going back and forth on the front panel, leaving an armhole. So this top part where the arm will be separated, and then we're going to work back and forth again, continuing on the back panel, and then leaving another space open for the second arm, and then continuing the back and forth rows for the front panel. Okay, so that's all going to be worked in one. We're going to then take the shoulders and seam up part of your shoulder so that you have this long like lapel type thing, and the bottom will look somewhat A-framed. And then we're going to work on the arms. So I'm going to show you everything that you need in order to make this up. I'm going to be making a really small one today just to show you all the stitches, and depending on the size that you're going to be making, I will be leaving the instructions or the row counts, how many repeat rows, etc. on the screen for the particular size that you guys are making. Now this one that you're looking at here is sized 810, and I used 800 yards for this size. I will go ahead and leave on the screen scrolling exactly how many yards you are going to need for the size that you're looking for. You will want to use a lightweight 4 yarn. I did find that a heavier 4 yarn was somewhat heavy, especially for the summer, but of course you can use a heavier yarn if you're in a colder area of the country or your country. Now this particular cardigan that I made here, I used the Mandala Tweed stripes. These come in 426 yard cakes. It is a 4-weight yarn. The recommended hook size is a 5.5 millimeter, but we went up to a 6 millimeter. I believe using the 6 millimeter gave it a lot more drape and hang for a clothing item. The color that you see here is Dragonfly. Okay, now this is a 100% acrylic yarn. It's machine washable and dryable. When I did finish this, I did toss it into the washing machine and the dryer, and it came out really nice. This yarn washes very, very well. Now you can use a solid color if you like. You could use a slow changing color. I do think that if you use a variegated yarn, you will lose a lot of the pattern definition, and texture will just be hidden in that yarn. Okay, so I'll show you really quick what the solid one looks like in the adult size. Now for this adult sized one, I did do a solid color, and I used ZZ Twist yarn. I did have some pattern testers use the ZZ Twist yarn for their smaller child size cardigans. It's more of a medium 4-weight, but it has a beautiful drape. It is a lot heavier, but of course at the same time, it is a much, I use twice the amount of yarn as the child size. All right, now the hook size that we are going to be using is a 6 millimeter hook. You do not necessarily need a stitch marker, but one stitch marker might be useful for measuring where your arm opening will be and where you want to stop on your stitches. Okay, now this pattern is really super fast. It's a 2-row repeat. So I made this child-sized cardigan in 3 days. I made the adult-sized cardigan in 4 days. There will be a written pattern linked in the description box below. And when the adult size does come out, I will also leave that linked in the description box below. Now you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram under Jolie Knots Crochet. I do have a Jolie Knots Crochet community group on Facebook where you can join and show us your makes from the Jolie Knots designs. Okay, so the yarn that I'm going to be using to show you today is just some of this leftover ZZ Twist yarn. It is a 4-weight yarn. I'm going to be showing you with a 6mm hook, and I'm going to be doing a really small cardigan in order to show you all of the steps. You should have everything you need, but if you do prefer the written pattern, that will be linked in the description box below. Okay, so to get started, you're going to take your hook and get started with a slip knot. Now remember I said I'm going to be making a very small one of this, so I'm not going to be making a full-size cardigan, but you are going to be able to know exactly everything that you need, okay? I will leave the chain counts, the beginning chain counts, scrolling on the screen so that you know exactly how many chains to get started on. Now, when you do chain, you are going to chain very loosely, or you can go up a hook size in your chain. My written pattern is a foundation single crochet. You can do a foundation single crochet or a very loose chain. The multiples of this pattern are 8 plus 2. So if you choose to lengthen or shorten, our beginning chain is going to be the length of your cardigan from the back down. If you choose to have it longer or shorter, you're gonna plus or minus in multiples of 8. So go ahead and get started with your chain count. Okay, so I have just completed my chain. Now what I'm gonna do is actually chain one more. That's not counting as a stitch. The way that we're gonna be working the beginning of every row is with a stacked single crochet to create a double crochet. Now we are not putting a border on this, so this is going to help us to have a straight edge for the bottom and for the top of our panel. Okay, so the way that we do a stacked single crochet, this is just our beginning stacked single crochet. We have that extra chain 1, and into the second chain from the hook, we are going to place a single crochet. Now, the way that we're going to stack this is you have that top V, and then if you look at the front of the stitch, you have 2 loops. One loop is from your top V and one loop is underneath that. You're going to place your hook through the loop that's underneath that, pull up a loop, and create another single crochet. That's stacking our single crochets to create a double crochet. Now what we're going to do is double crochet into the next stitch, or the next chain. So now we've got a total of 2 double crochets. Now we're going to skip 2 stitches, and into the next one we're going to place 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. And now into the very next chain, we're going to place 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Now we'll skip 2 chains. Into the next chain, we're going to place 1 double crochet, and then 1 double crochet into the next chain. And this will be our repeat. So our repeat is to skip 2 stitches, 3 double crochets into the next, all into the same chain, and then 3 double crochets again into the next chain. So you should have 3 in one, 3 in the next, 6 double crochets total within those 2. Now we will skip 2 stitches, double crochet 1 time into the next 2 stitches. So that's what you're repeating down the end. So you've got your 2 double crochets that you're beginning with. Your repeat is to skip 2 stitches, 3 double crochets into the next, 3 double crochets into the next, skip 2 stitches, and 2 double crochets, 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. I'm repeating that again, and now I'm going to repeat that one more time. You're going to repeat it all the way down to the end of your chain. So 1, 2, we're skipping 2, 3 double crochets into the next, three double crochets into the next chain, you should have 4 stitches left at the end of your row. We're going to skip 2 of them and then end our row with 2 double crochets, the same as we started. So your beginning of the row should always look exactly the same as the end of your row. We started with 2, we're ending with 2. Okay? So now getting started on row 2, we're going to start with a stacked single crochet again. Now this one's different than working into your chain, because working into our chain we had to actually chain 1. So from here we're not chaining 1, we're just going into the stitch and creating a single crochet, going into not that top loop but the loop underneath it, go into the stitch, pull up a loop and create another single crochet. So we're stacking again 2 single crochets to make a double crochet, and that's going to help our end stay straight. Into the next stitch we're going to place 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Now that's how we're starting. Here's our repeat. Our repeat is to skip 2 stitches, double crochet into the next, double crochet into the next, skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and then 3 double crochets into the next stitch. 1, 2, 3. 3 double crochets into the next stitch. 1, 2, 3. And that's the end of our repeat. So you'll notice now where the pattern starts, you'll have 2 double crochets here in the middle of your 6 double crochets below, and then your 2 double crochets here from row 1 will have 3 double crochets into each of those stitches. Now we're going to do our repeat again. Skip 2 stitches, double crochet, double crochet into the next stitch, skip 2 stitches, 3 double crochets, three double crochets into the next stitch. So you are going to repeat that all the way down your row. And the way that we are going to end, we won't be able to have a full repeat at the end. So our last one is going to be to skip 2 stitches, double crochet, then double crochet into the next stitch. You'll have 4 stitches left. So you're going to skip 2 stitches and place 3 double crochets. And double crochet into your last stitch. So again, the beginning of your row with 1 double crochet and then 3 double crochets in the next is going to look exactly the same at your end, mirrored, 3 double crochets and then 1 at the end. So this is your row 1 and your row 2. You are going to repeat rows 1 and 2 for the front panel. It's going to be an even number of rows. Okay, so I will go ahead and leave scrolling on the screen how many rows total you should have for your repeat rows 1 and 2. So for example, if you should have a total of 12 rows, you're going to need 6 of these repeats total. So 1, 2, you'd actually repeat that a total of 6 times. So we've got 1 here, 5 more times, that's going to give you 12 rows, for example, okay? So go ahead and repeat the amount of rows that you need, and then our row 3 technically is going to be a different kind of row that's going to leave arm opening at the top. Okay, so now I have here 2 full repeats of row 1 and 2. So 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, after you've done all of your repeat rows, we're going to work a row 3. Okay, so now I'm going to show you row 3. So after your repeats of rows 1 and 2, we're going to work a row 3. And that's going to be where we leave a space open for our armhole later on. So essentially, row 3 is starting out exactly the same as row 2. Okay, so what you're going to do here is you're going to have a stitch count from the opposite side. So I'm working from here going towards this way. You're going to have a stitch count, whether it be 12, 16, 20, 20, whatever the stitch count is. So the one that I'm going to be making here, I'm going to leave a space open that's just 12 stitches. So I'm going to count 12 stitches from the end. Whatever your stitch count is, you're going to do this, but with your stitch count. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I am going to leave those stitches open and mark that 16th stitch. And right before that stitch right there is exactly where I'm going to stop. Okay? So getting started on row 3, I am going to do a stacked single crochet to create a double crochet. I'm going to work my row 3 just as the start of my row 1. So I'm going to double crochet into the next stitch, skip 2, and place 3 double crochets in each of the next 2 stitches. Skip 2 stitches and place 1 double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. Skip 2 stitches and place 3 double crochets. Now there are 2 different row 3s depending on the size that you're working. If your row 3 is going to end where these 2 double crochets are, you're just going to have 3 double crochets in the first one and then 1 double crochet into the next one. So this is what, if your stitch marker ends after your 6 double crochets, this is where your row 3 is going to stop. as far as these stitches go. In some sizing, your stitches will end here in the beginning or in the middle of your 6 double crochets. So in that case, you would just end like this with your stitch marker will be here, and then your last 2 stitches of row 3 will just be these 2 double crochets. So there are 2 different options depending on where your stitch marker falls. If your stitch marker is falling at the end of your 6 double crochet group, you're ending with 3 double crochets and then 1 double crochet. If your stitch marker ends in the middle of a 6 double crochet group, your row 3 will stop with 2 double crochets. Okay, so hopefully that makes enough sense for you. Now, because we have 16 stitches marked here, or 20 stitches, or whatever yours is, I have 12, so I am going to chain the same amount of stitches that we skipped. So remember to chain loosely. So I've chained mine. Turn your work. And now essentially, because this one was like a partial row 1, the next row in the sequence is going to be row 2. So we're going to have a series of repeats just like rows 1 and 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. This is a row 3, but it's essentially starting out a row 1 and it's got the chains. And then the next row in the sequence will be a row 2. So your repeats on your back panel are going to be starting rows 2, then 1, 2, then 1. Here we did 1, 2, 1, 2. Then we've got this row. Now we're going to do 2, 1, 2, 1. Okay? So starting here, we're going to do that standing double crochet, but because we are working into the chain, we're going to work that 1 extra chain. So work that 1 extra chain, go into the second chain from your hook, place a single crochet, and then single crochet again into that front loop. And now into the next stitch, we're going to place our 3 double crochets. Skip 2 stitches, double crochet once into each of the next 2 stitches. And this is what your row should look like beginning, okay? Do your repeat, skip 2 stitches, 3 double crochets in each of the next 2 stitches. Now we'll skip 2 stitches, and then your next stitch should line up exactly what we were doing prior to our arm row. So my double crochet once into the next 2 stitches should fall right over where my 3 double crochets are. So remember, if your arm row ended on these 2 stitches being your last stitches before your stitch count, then you will begin after your chain spaces working 3 double crochets and 3 double crochets. All right, so moving right along, skipping 2 stitches, 3 double crochets. And then finishing out my row. Now I'm going to leave for you, scrolling on the screen again, how many rows you're going to need in your back panel. So our first front panel is having an even amount of rows, right? So whatever number you had here in your front panel, that's an even amount of rows. And then we have our arm row, and then we're beginning our rows again for our back panel. Our back panel is going to have an odd amount of rows. So we're starting with the row 2 in our back panel, and then we're going to repeat rows 1 and 2. So say for example, you see on the screen that you need 29 rows for your back panel. You're going to repeat rows 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, all the way until you have 29 full rows, and then we're going to work another armhole. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add 4 more rows to this. You're going to add however many more rows you need, and then I will meet you back here. We'll work the armhole again, and then we'll work the rest of the front panel. Okay, so I have completed my back panel. Of course, yours is going to look a lot larger than mine, and yours should have an odd number of rows. So our first panel had an even number of rows. Our back panel is going to have an odd number of rows, and then we're going to work this row 3 where our arm row is the same exact way that we worked the first one. So I will leave scrolling up again how many stitches you're going to count to leave open. You are going to place your stitch marker in the last stitch counted, and now we're going to begin to work our row up to our stitch marker. So starting with a stacked single crochet to create a double crochet, and continuing our row just as normal. This is starting out again, remember, as a row 1, but then we're ending it sooner to leave that armhole. So let me get myself worked up to that armhole. Now remember, mine here is ending at the end of a 6 double crochet. That's where my armhole is going to start. But some of you guys are going to be ending in the middle of a 6 double crochet. So I'm going to end here with 3 double crochets and 1 double crochet, and some of your sizing is going to just end with 1 double crochet and 1 double crochet. Okay, so now I'm going to chain, remember, the amount of stitches that I left open plus that 1 extra chain. And into the second chain from my hook, I'm going to do my stacked single crochet to create my double crochet. So now I'm going to work down my chain and down my stitches as a row 2. So remember, my row 2 starts with 1 double crochet into the first stitch and 3 double crochets into the next. Skip 2, place 2 double crochets, 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. Skip 2, 3 double crochets in each of the next 2 stitches. And now with 2 stitches left before my actual stitches come, I'm going to work my double crochet and my double crochet. So skipping those 2 stitches, working my double crochets. Mine starts with 2 double crochets. Yours might start with 3 double crochets and 3 double crochets. All right, so finishing out my row here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat rows 1 and 2 for the same amount of rows that are on our front panel, only you'll have one extra row. So this is an even number, this is an odd number, and this is also going to be an odd number. So if the sizing that is scrolling along the screen is telling you that you need 13 rows, that should be one row more than you did on the first panel. And that's because we're going to add a row to that panel. Okay? So let me explain it again. Hopefully you'll be easy to understand. I have an even amount of rows. My pattern here has 4 rows. Yours has however many it has. My back panel has an odd amount of rows. Now my next panel, which will be my second front panel, is going to have the exact same amount of rows here, but one more. So if you have 28 rows in your first panel, for example, your next front panel is going to have 29 rows, okay? So once I finish out my rows, we're going to add an extra row here, so it's not like a chain at the beginning and it actually looks like a row end. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my odd number of rows here. You're going to do the amount of rows that shows or that you saw scrolling on the screen, and then I'm going to meet you back and we're going to add to this front panel one, and then we're going to start putting it all together. Okay, so go ahead and finish out your panel and I will meet you right back. Okay, so I have the body of my panel almost complete. Yours, again, is going to look a lot larger than mine. Take your scissors, cut your yarn. Go ahead and fasten off. And now what we're going to do is we're going to attach our yarn at the beginning of your first panel. So I had an even number of rows here, odd number and odd number. And the end of my panel is working with the row facing out, and this one has a chain. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a row here so that the border matches the other side. Okay, and so that I don't have more ends to weave in, I always join my yarn with a magic knot. I've never had one of these knots come out on me. You can join your yarn whichever way you like the best, but this is the way I like mine. All right? If I pull that really tight, the yarn will break before my knot does. Okay, so now I'm going to work a row 2 going down. So we began with a row 1. Remember, our rows are just staggering. Row 1 and 2. So I'm going to go ahead and go into this stitch and pull up a loop. And now I'm going to chain 1, because if I go back into the stitch, I'm going to pull my loop out. So begin with a stacked single crochet to create a double crochet. And now my next stitch is going to be 3 double crochets into the same stitch, skip 2, double crochet once into each of the next 2 stitches. So you should look like this. Now 3 double crochets into each of the next 2 stitches. Remember, we're skipping those 2 chains. Skip your chain space, 2 double crochets, 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. Skip your chains, 3 double crochets, And this will be the last portion of the body, oops, of our panel. This will be the last thing that we do, and then we'll get started on putting the sleeves together and also creating our arms. So 1, 2, 3, and my last stitch. Fasten off, cut your yarn. All right, and now the body is done. So now your front panels should have the exact same amount of stitches. Okay, so in order to get started on our arms, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna lay it flat and we're gonna fold the front panel over the back panel. Now, depending on your size, I'm gonna leave scrolling up on the screen how many rows you slip stitch together. You can slip stitch them, you can single crochet them, you can whip stitch them, whatever your preferred method of joining is. There is not a front and a back to this cardigan. There's no inside or outside. If you choose to do a single crochet or a slip stitch, that will leave a ridge, and then this will now become the inside because nobody wants to really walk around with that big hump. All right. So I'm just gonna go ahead and single crochet them together for ease of showing you. So go ahead and attach your yarn. Now, scrolling on the screen, depending on your size, it might say to whip stitch up 2 rows. It might say 10 rows. It might say 15 rows. So depending on your size, all we're gonna do is line up these 2 first parts here. And I'm gonna go ahead and seam up 2 of my rows. Remember, mine is just gonna be an itty bitty one. I'm gonna seam up 2. Okay, so once I have seamed up my 2 rows, this is now going to leave like a lapel open. Okay, you can then either cut your yarn or you can single crochet over to where the next portion of yours is going to be. I've only got 1 in the middle here, so I apologize that it's not like a huge amount for you to see me single crochet. But once your first panel is over, you have sewn up 2 rows here. You're gonna leave 2 rows open here. Fold your next panel over, line those stitches up, and now I'm gonna seam up the next side of my panel. Okay, so just like that, fasten and cut your yarn. And again, yours should look so much bigger than mine. Mine's is this little itty bitty one, but it should look like this. You should have this lapel over it. If you did a single crochet or a slip stitch, that's now going to be the inside of your panel. And what you're going to want to do is flip it inside out, or right side out, I guess you'd say then. And here's what your front will look like. Okay, so now we're going to get started on the arms. We've created our armhole now because we've closed the top shoulder up. And if you remember, we're going to have 2 sizes in the arms. So some of the arms are going to start with the 3 double crochets and then the 1 double crochet, and then some of the arms are going to start with these 2 double crochets. Now the pattern, it should be super simple no matter which one you start on, because the pattern is just repeating itself. We're just following exactly what we've done before. So I am going to take my slip knot and pay careful attention to the arms, because it is a repeat of rows 2 to 10 to get to the desired length, and we will be decreasing a certain amount per row, okay? So if your pattern started, if your 3rd row ended here with the 3 double crochets and then the 1, if you take a look at what your next, once you start working up the arm, my next stitch is going to need to be skip 2 double crochet and then double crochet. If your 3rd row ended on work like this, and then we're working up here, you would just need to start with a double crochet and then skip to 3 double crochets and 3 double crochets, assuming these weren't here. Okay, so you will have 2 different starting rows as well. So I'm going to take my yarn, and starting, because I'm right here and then my next stitch is here, is just double crochet, I'm going to start with 3 double crochets. When I end, I will end with the other 3 double crochets. If you are starting on the double crochet portion, that's just double crochet, not 3 double crochet, 3 double crochet. You're just going to start with 1 double crochet, okay? And then we're going to work up the arm into our regular pattern. So because I started with my 3, my next move is going to be to skip these 2 stitches and then work my double crochets, 1 double crochet in each of the next 2. Now, some of you might be needing to work the 3 double crochets and 3 double crochets. Okay, so we're going to work then the remainder of our pattern going up our arm. And when we get to the top, see here at the top, we have 3 double crochets and then 1 double crochet. That's going to be the same no matter what size. Only the beginning of the arm row is different, but the top of the arm is going to be the exact same way. So what we're going to do here when we get to the top is we're going to skip our 2 stitches, and then we're going to double crochet 2 together over this 1 double crochet and then this last double crochet of the panel. And that's going to now be the 1 double crochet that starts here, only we're putting them together. And then we're going to do the same going down the other arm. So we're double crocheting 2 together, 1, 2. Okay, just working the correct part of the pattern. This is just turning into those 2 double crochets. Skipping your 2 chains on this side is now, and now at the bottom of these 2 double crochets I will put my 3 double crochets, skipping my 2 stitches and working 2 double crochets. You'll work that down the rest of the arm of your panel. Because I am at the bottom already, I'm skipping my 2 chains, and then I'm going to end with 3 double crochets over this same double crochet post where I started. And that is 3, and now I'm going to slip stitch to join. So this is row 1. Okay? This is row 1. Now I'm going to show you row 2. For some sizes, row 1 is going to, remember, row 1 is going to start like this on some sizes, and then on some sizes, row 1 is only going to start with those 2 double crochets. So for example, if this is your starting row 1, I'm going to now show you round 2. But if you started with the 1 double crochet, skip 2, and then 3 double crochet, 3 double crochet, you're not going to do this round 2 because it's really going to be the exact same thing you started with. You're actually going to skip to round 3. But you are going to pay attention to round 2 because your repeat rows are going to be rounds 2 through 10. I hope it's not too confusing, and I super apologize if it is. So beginning on round 2, we're going to turn after every row in the arms. So I've just completed this row, and now I'm going to turn. I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to double crochet in my first stitch. Now I'm going to skip 2 stitches and place my 3. I'm following my pattern essentially. The way that it's always been, I'm going to skip those 2 stitches, 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets. I know it's difficult to try to explain all of the different sizings to you guys, but I do it to try because I do like to give my pattern away on YouTube for free, but if it is too confusing, I apologize. There's a written pattern linked in the description box below for purchase. I do free YouTubes, but you do have to pay for the written patterns. You can support me in that way. Thank you so much. If you do, I truly appreciate it. I'm going to work all the way around my arm in the same manner as if I was working my other rows. So skipping 2 stitches, double crochet once into the next 2 stitches. And see when we get to the top how we had those the double crochet 2 togethers. Those are now 1 and 1. So I can place my 3 double crochets into each of those stitches. All right, skip 2, double crochet, double crochet, skip 2, 3 double crochet, 3 double crochet. Now this is technically considered round 2. This will be the first round of our repeat row. So we've just completed, I slip stitch to my first stitch to join, and now I'm going to turn my work. We're turning after every row. This is completing our second round. Round 2 is the first round of our repeat round. Now getting started on round 3 for our arms is essentially in round 3 and 4, we're gonna like repeat these 2 rounds. So chain 2. Because we're working into our regular single double crochets here, I'm going to start into the first stitch here with 3 double crochets. Skip 2, double crochet once, double crochet once into the next stitch, skip 2, 3 single crochets, and 3 single crochets into the next, skip 2, double crochet, double crochet, skip 2, 3 double crochet, 3 double crochet. Skip 2, double crochet, double crochet. We're repeating that all the way around until we get back to the beginning. Mine's going to be pretty fast here because it's a little teeny tiny armhole. So now skipping to my last stitch is a double crochet, and I'm going to go ahead and put my 3 double crochets in there. Slip stitch to the top of my first stitch to join. Those chain 2s in the beginning do not count as a stitch. Okay, this is the end of round 3 for our sleeves. Okay, getting started on round 4. Round 4 is a repeat of round 2. So we are turning our work, chaining 2, not counting as a stitch, and because we began with 3 double crochets, we're going to begin with 1 double crochet. Skip 2 stitches, 3 double crochets, and 3 double crochets. Repeat that all the way around. Skip 2 stitches, double crochet, double crochet, skip 2 stitches, 3 double crochets, and 3 double crochets. Skip 2 stitches, double crochet, double crochet, skip 2 stitches, 3 double crochet, 3 double crochet. Repeat it all the way around your arm. Skip 2 stitches into the last stitch of your round will be a double crochet. And now we'll slip stitch to the first double crochet to join and turn our work. Chain 2, getting started on round 5. So in our first 4 rounds, 1, 2, 3, 4, we didn't increase or decrease any stitches, okay? In round 5, this is going to be the first time that we decrease stitches, and we're going to decrease by 2 stitches, okay? So it's going to look a little bit different in this round. Starting round 5, we have our chain 2 not counting as a stitch. And now into this first stitch, instead of double crocheting 3 like before, we're going to place 2 double crochets. So we're decreasing that first stitch right off of the bat. Now we're going to repeat the regular part of our pattern. Skip 2, double crochet into the next 2 stitches. Skip 2, 3 double crochets. And 3 double crochets into the next. Skip 2, 2 double crochets. Skip 2, 3 double crochets, and 3 double crochets. Repeating it all the way back down to the beginning. And when you get to the beginning, when you skip 2 and you come to your last stitch, we're going to end with 2 double crochets, just like we started with 2 double crochets. And now your stitch count for the arms have been decreased by 2 stitches. Okay? All right, that is the end of round 5. Getting started on round 6, we are going to keep on our decrease, but we're not decreasing more. So for example, round 6 is going to have the same amount of stitches as round 5. Chain 2, double crochet into the first stitch. Don't forget to turn your work like I just forgot. Chain 2, double crochet into the first stitch. And now we're going to skip 1 stitch because that's going to bring us right up to our 2 double crochets. And then we're going to place 2 double crochets into the first stitch and 3 double crochets into the next. So round 6, again, chain 2, not counting as a stitch, double crochet into the first stitch, skip 1 stitch, 2 double crochets into the next, 3 double crochets into the stitch after that. Work your regular repeat around your sleeve, skipping 2, 2 double crochets, skipping 2, 3 double crochets, and 3 double crochets. Skipping 2, 2 double crochets. And then skipping 2, 3 double crochets. When you're at your last repeat, remember we started with double crochet and then 2 double crochets. So when you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches left, you are going to skip your last, you're going to skip 2 stitches, place 3 double crochets into the first double crochet, and then 2 double crochets into the next. You should have 2 stitches left. Skip 1 stitch, double crochet into the last. So rounds 5 and 6 do have the same amount of stitches, which is 2 stitches less than we started our arms with. Round 7, chain 2, that's not counting as a stitch, turn your work. Getting started on round 7, we are going to double crochet into the first stitch, skip 1 stitch, and now we're going to do 2 double crochets. So skipping 1, double crocheting into the next stitch, double crocheting into the stitch after that. In this round we are decreasing by 2 stitches again. Now we're going to work our regular repeat by skipping 2, 3 double crochet, 3 double crochet. Skipping 2, 1 double crochet and 1 double crochet. Working that around until you get back toward the beginning. So we're repeating our regular pattern until we have 2 stitches left. So there's my 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, and now I have 2 stitches left to get to the beginning. I'm going to skip 1 stitch and double crochet into the next. Slip stitch to the top of my double crochet to join, pull that tight to close, and turn your work. That was the end of round 7, and now we're going to get started on round 8. Round 8 is going to start by slip stitching over 2 stitches. So we are going to 1, 2, slip stitching over 2 stitches. Now we're going to chain 2, and we are going to double crochet into the same stitch. Into the next stitch, we're going to double crochet 3. Now the rest of our arm is going to work like our regular pattern. Skipping 2 stitches and then placing 2 double crochets, 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. Keep going around, skip 2 stitches, 3 double crochets, and then 3 more double crochets in the next stitch. Skipping 2 stitches, double crochet, double crochet. So you're going to repeat our regular pattern until you have 6 stitches left. So you should end with 2 double crochets and then 6 stitches left towards the end. We're going to skip 2 stitches and double crochet 3 times into the next stitch. Double crochet 1 into the stitch after that. And now with 1 stitch left here, we're going to skip that stitch and go directly into slip stitching into the top of the first double crochet for round 8. Your round 8 decreased by 2 stitches. So our first decrease was in round 5. Round 6 was the same amount of stitches as round 5. Our next decrease was in round 7, so we had 2 stitches left than round 6. In round 8, we decreased by 2 again. And now in round 9, we're going to decrease by 2 again. So in round 9, turn your work, we're going to slip stitch over again, starting round 9, 2 stitches, chain 2, and double crochet into the same stitch. Skip 2 stitches, 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets. Skip 2 stitches, double crochet, double crochet. Skip 2 stitches, 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets. And we're going to repeat that now like our regular pattern until we have 5 stitches left for round 9. So I have 5 stitches left, 1, 2, 3, 4. My 5th one is one that was slip stitched over into. So now we're going to skip 2 stitches and we're going to place a double crochet. Now with these last 2 stitches left, we're going to skip those. We're going to slip stitch to our first double crochet to join and turn our work. Now round 10 will have the same amount of stitches as round 9. There is no decreasing. Once we complete round 10, you are going to rewind and you're going to repeat rounds 2 and through 10 until you get to the desired length of the arms that you want. So round 10, I slip stitch to join. I'm turning my work. I am chaining 2 and I am placing 3 double crochets into my first stitch. This round is pretty much the same pattern as our regular pattern. Skip 2, double crochet, double crochet. Skip 2, 3 double crochet, 3 double crochet. Repeat that until the end. Skipping 2, placing your 2 double crochets. And when I get to the end, I will skip 2 and I'll have 3 double crochets into my last stitch. All right, and that is the end of mine. That is where I will finish off. Again, yours should look bigger. This is my round 1 through 10. If I wanted mine to keep getting longer, I'm going to repeat rounds 2 through 10. Now, if you get to the end of your repeat and the width of your wrist opening is a good width and you don't want to decrease it anymore, but you still need length, you're going to repeat rounds 2 and 3. Round 2, round 3, round 2, round 3, until you get to the desired length that you want without decreasing anymore. Okay? You are going to then repeat the same thing on the other side. And your sweater, maybe I should show you the bigger one again because this is just for a sample. But then your sweater will be ready to wear. So we have got our sleeve here for this size 8 to 10 in a child size. I worked from round 1 through round 10, and then I repeated rounds 2 through 10, and I did a couple of extra rows of rounds 2 to 3. Okay, once you tie that off, you can weave in all of your ends and you will be ready to wear it and enjoy it. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching Jolie Knots Crochet. I'm Crystal again. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram under Jolie Knots Crochet, in the Jolie Knots Crochet community group on Facebook. Show us what you've created.